Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. T here as always. Excuse the voice. I think I'm getting sick. It is the middle of winter and it's raining outside. So Mr. T here as always, and we are here today with our 12th amendment video, and it is on the Electoral College, sort of, and I'll get into that in a second. Now, the 12th Amendment, it's one of my favorite amendments to talk about. Not really to actually, use, because I'm probably never going to use it, because even if I got to the position of running for president, I probably wouldn't, because, I just don't really want to be president. Congressman, senator, maybe, but not president. So I will probably never use this amendment. But it's fun to talk about, and here's why. Especially because we just had an election 3.5, or about a little over a month ago. Getting my dates mixed up. Now, we're going to get into it. So what does the 12th Amendment do? The 12th Amendment talks about the Electoral College and how presidents are elected. And you're probably thinking, Mr. T, this is the 12th Amendment. Shouldn't we have already had that figured out by now? Between the Amendments 1 through 11? Now, we did. In Article 1 of the Constitution, actually Article 2 of the Constitution, it talks about the President of the United States and how we elect him. Now, but here's the problem. It was all messed up, and we're going to get into that in a second. So, the need for the 12th Amendment started in the election of 1800, okay? We elect a new president every 4 years, and in the election of 1800, okay? This was our fourth presidential election. We had 1788, 1792, 1792, and then 1796, okay? Now, election of 1800, this is our fourth presidential election in our history, okay? And it was against Thomas Jefferson, who was the current vice president at the time, wrote the Declaration, not the Constitution, wrote the Declaration of Independence with help. He wasn't the only one who wrote it. He was the first ever Secretary of State. I mean, he kind of is a big deal in American history. So if you don't know who Thomas Jefferson is, excuse me while I headbang over there on the side, because he's kind of a big deal. Now, sorry, off my little rant. Now, he was up against John Adams, who was the current president at the time. Again, founding father, another big deal in American history. And this other guy named Aaron Burr. Now, John Adams didn't really have a great presidency, okay? XYZ affairs, Alien and Sedition Acts, a whole bunch of messed up things. So there was no way he was going to win re-election. Thomas Jefferson was the golden boy. Okay, I mean, and arguably he is one of our better presidents, doubled the land size of the United States, all these great things. But he had to get elected president first. And here's the problem. When the election came out, the way the Electoral College worked at this time, okay, before the 12th Amendment, this is before the 12th, it worked where every elector had 2 votes, and they had to vote one for president, they had to vote for 2 people. Sorry, vice president it existed, but they didn't vote for a vice president. They voted for just president, okay? Then the way it worked is whoever got the most votes was president. Whoever got the second most votes was vice president. I think some of you can see where this problem is going. What happens if it's a tie? Okay? And that's exactly what happened. The way it worked was Aaron Burr had already agreed to step back and be vice president if the event of a tie came up. However, when the election results finally came in, him and Thomas Jefferson were too close to call. And Aaron Burr is thinking, wow, this is the closest I might ever get to being president of the United States. So he just sat back and he just shut up. He didn't say anything. So it ultimately went to the House of Representatives. After 36 votes, okay, Alexander Hamilton, another major figure in, American history. Look at the back of a $20 bill if you want to see what he looks like. He kind of swayed his opinion towards Jefferson. He hated Jefferson. I mean, these guys, there was no love lost between them. They hated each other. But Alexander Hamilton knew that out of Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr, Jefferson would be the better choice, so Congress was swayed to voting for Jefferson. So Jefferson won the election. Thomas Jefferson was our 3rd president and won the election of 1800. However, you see the problem here. We need to establish a system of president and vice president, and that's where the 12th Amendment came in. Under the 12th Amendment, the way presidents are elected is the Electoral College, everyone still has 2 votes. But this time, they vote in one separate list for president, and then another separate list for vice president, okay? Now, with that being said, a lot of people see all these running mates and stuff like that. They see someone running for president, and they see someone running for vice president, okay? Just like Clinton Kaine. You'll see that, Clinton, Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine. They were running together. Then you saw Trump Pence, okay? Donald Trump, Mike Pence. You saw them together. they run together. But here's the thing that I think is funny, and when I tell people, they argue against me, and then I remind them that I have like 6 copies of the Constitution sitting right here in my room, so I think I know what I'm talking about. When you run for president, a president and his running mate, the one he chooses to be his vice president, don't necessarily win together. And that's under the 12th Amendment, because they're 2 separate lists. And the way this works is, so Donald Trump was elected president this last election, okay? So he'll take the presidency on January 20th. However, his running mate, Mike Pence, under the 12th Amendment, Mike Pence didn't have to win. If Trump won, Mike Pence didn't have to. For all we know, Tim Kaine, okay, Hillary Clinton's VP, he could have won. So we would have had Donald Trump and Tim Kaine as president and vice president. That's what the 12th Amendment allows. It allows 2 separate people to be elected, so we no longer have that mix-up. Now, getting into 2 other things, and then I'm going to give a little bit of history. So the first thing is, what happens if there is still a tie? Okay, so under the 12th Amendment, what happens if there is still no winner? Okay, in today's Electoral College, you need 270 votes. Okay, if you don't reach the 270 votes, then it goes to the House of Representatives and the Senate. The top 3 people, so in this last election, if no one reached the minimum, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Gary Johnson, their names would have been sent to the House of Representatives in our Congress, and then the House of Representatives would have voted. Okay, vice president, the top 2 people, so in this past presidential election, it would have been Mike Pence and Tim Kaine. Their names would have been sent to the Senate, and the Senate would have voted. And that's what's stated in the Constitution. Now, one court case, that's the only thing I could find for this amendment. There's only one court case for this amendment, and it's called Ray versus Blair in 1952. And what it said is, Blair, he met all the requirements to being an elector, okay, for the Electoral College. But he wasn't allowed to do it because he wouldn't give an oath. And an oath basically says, most states require you to give an oath saying you're going to vote for the popular vote. Because in America, the Electoral College doesn't have to vote for the popular vote. So who you pick for president, the Electoral College doesn't have to vote for them. Okay? And actually, that just happened at this last election. A couple people didn't vote. But the problem with this court case was, Blair was saying that you can't make me say an oath. The Supreme Court said there was nothing in the 12th Amendment saying they couldn't. So yes, states are allowed to require people to take an oath, and some of those faithless electors who voted in this last election are actually going to get fined a pretty hefty penny in some of those states. So the only last thing that I have for you guys is, under the 12th Amendment, there were 2 elections. The election of 1824, which was John Quincy Adams, John Adams' son, Andrew Jackson, William Crawford, and Henry Clay, the Great Compromiser. All 4 men, they were all from the same political party, because their rival political party kind of fell apart. And they were all from the same political party, and they all were heavy contenders. The top 3, Quincy, Jackson, and Crawford, they went to the House of Representatives, and Henry Clay, a lot of people feel, who was Speaker of the House at the time, they feel that Henry Clay swayed the results towards John Quincy Adams, and then John Quincy Adams gave Henry Clay the Secretary of State position, which is kind of a coveted position other than the presidency. So many people call that the corrupt bargain. That was used under the 12th Amendment's way of, electing president. Then the final one, the election of 1820. James Monroe, okay? He also ran in 1816, so this was his second term. In 1816, he ran against Rufus King. Now, in 1820, he ran unopposed, okay? But here's the thing where the 12th Amendment comes in. It's also the only time in American history he ran unopposed. Some people credit Washington's 2 runs in 1788 and 1792, but that was pre-12th Amendment, so technically speaking, he was running against everyone else. Technically, no one was in their right mind was going to vote against Washington, though. But in 1820, James Monroe, he ran unopposed. But the vice presidency, there were actually several people who ran in the vice presidency category, which could happen under the 12th. Alright, so that's all I got for you guys. The 12th Amendment isn't really a big amendment, well, it's a long amendment. It's not even the longest. But that's pretty much what the 12th Amendment is. The Electoral College, you not voting for president. I'm sorry, guys. But as always, stick around for the 13th Amendment, the amendment on slavery, or anti-slavery, and the other Reconstruction amendments coming up with 13, 14, and 15. And as always, stay beautiful, Americans. Peace.